just dominant.
This is Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it's time for the Atlanta Baseball Party, only on Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the Atlanta Baseball Party, your home for the best Atlanta Braves baseball talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra, Batiste. Alongside me is Jarvis Davis, and this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. So go to prizepicks.com/lockedonmlb and use code, all lowercase, LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Our Atlanta Baseball Party is also part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the infirmary list grew this week, but we'll talk about how Snit and AA have handled it just as well as always. And Angels in the outfield, we'll get into it. But first, let's get into the Braves beginning a 6-game homestand exactly how they wanted to, Jarvis. The Braves won 3-1 against their nemesis, the Philadelphia Phillies. Tuesday, Reynaldo Lopez was lights out in his return, of course, from the IL, pitched 5 innings, struck out 10 batters. But when you look at it overall, what does this win mean? What does a win like this mean for the Braves?
It means that I can now start taking the Braves for who they are. Like we understand that they've gone through this process of kind of the riding the roller coaster, right? And every time they win games like this, I'm trying to like, all right, have they turned the corner? Have they turned the corner? And the answer to that question is no. This is who they are. They've dealt with so many injuries, like you mentioned. And this is not a negative way of looking at it. I feel like when you look at it from this aspect of it, like you understand what they have had to deal with, and they've had to deal with a lot. And for them to come out and just be dominant, that pitcher style was dominant. You're talking about Reynaldo Lopez and coming off the IL and looking refreshed, and like his velocity was even up a little bit, over his average for the season. So when you think about it from that standpoint, is like you're making the best of what they've been dealt, and I appreciate that. I'm going to appreciate that for these last 37 games as this season winds down, and just take everything for what it is. And I'm no longer going to say, have you turned the corner, T? That is putting to bed today as we record this doggone podcast, August 21st. Yes, it is over. No more asking, have they turned the corner? We're just going to take things for what they is and appreciate them as we go along.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, that we got to stop asking that question, because there's no corner to turn at this point in the season.
You are who you are.
You are who you are. But for me, the win meant that old reliable times 2 was old reliable. So like you said, Reynaldo Lopez, 6 of the strikeouts, which I really think speaks volumes to how dominant he was last night. Those 6 strikeouts were against Kyle Schwarber and Bryce Harper. That's huge. That's huge. And I've been talking about this on different platforms.
Love Bryce Harper strikeout, T.
Boom. I was not say it. You just said it. Yep. It really, I was like, anytime they've been on the struggle bus along with JT Realmuto, those 3 came back, and everybody thought the Phillies were going to return to their dominance, and they really haven't. So for Reynaldo Lopez to fall right in line with where a number of pitchers have since those 3 have returned to the Phillies lineup and be able to like sit them down, I thought that was really good. And let's be real, I know we'll talk about it a little more in depth later, but with yet another Brave going down, of course, this time it's Austin Riley, you kind of go the way that you just said, which is it's up, down, and they are who they are as far as not being able to produce at the plate. So they only manufactured 3 runs. But what Reynaldo Lopez did was remind you of what has kept them afloat this entire season. It's pitching. It's pitching. Yes. He literally sat the Phillies down in order. That was another thing I liked. And with the strikeouts, the pair of strikeouts that we just talked about, a scoreless frame in the 3rd. And then what does Atlanta do? What do the Braves do? they actually hit gold. And that's my other old reliable, by the way. So Reynaldo Lopez was my first old reliable. And that's what this means, getting that guy back and getting him back in true form. And then old reliable number 2, Marcel Ozuna, because he's the other one that's kept them afloat the entire season.
He's the guy that has been Mr. Reliable, like you mentioned. And that is so weird because when everybody was trying to trade him, including myself, when everybody was trying to know, why is this dude still on the team?
Yes.
You see it. It's like that one of your girlfriends who messed around with that dude. And you, when I say that dude, it's like, man, what did you see?
Right. What do you
Dude,
see?
I
Right.
just see all the negative things that comes with being a male counterpart or a male, being in a relationship with the opposite sex, right? So, but it's just something about him that keeps her coming back, and that's what the Braves and Brian Snitker, Alex Anthopoulos, like they're like, no, we good with this relationship. You mind your business over there, stay over there,
Exactly.
and it has paid off for him to be the guy that carried this team while everybody was struggling with all the injuries, like we mentioned. It has just been so cool to watch. And another thing that kind of stood out to me last night, T, is Grant Holmes. Grant, the way he was pitching and the way he's just been just an asset for the Braves this year, from being flexible enough to come out of the bullpen to be a starter for you in a super pinch, and now he's going to be the long reliever. And for him to be in the game last night, playoff atmosphere-ish type stuff going on. I almost said Turner Field. It just, those are the things that just keep me going, and help navigate all the crap they've been dealing with this year.
And then, like we were saying with Ozuna, it was right there at the right time when he hit a solo shot right to center field to put the Braves back up, because at that point you're really kind of talking about a duel, and that's what you kind of expected. Zach Wheeler, Reynaldo Lopez, you knew it was going to be.
He always pitches well against the Braves.
Exactly. So it was important for him to have that particular shot at that time, because of course, what does Wheeler do but go and sit the Braves down in order? But then I still think, because of what Ozuna was able to do, the Phillies were like, yeah, we're just going to shut Zach Wheeler down for the night. And then we know how the game went from there. Now, also, there are always X factors, and there have to be, because when you have an infirmary list the way the Braves do, there's always going to be someone that unexpectedly delivers in any game that you win, pretty much. And we saw it in last night's game too. So who were those X factor players for you for the Braves last night?
I would have to go with Whit Merrifield, because he's been struggling. Like my folks on the west side, struggling. Add that C up in there, but for him to come through like he did, with a triple, a double, and a walk in a crucial point in the game last night, and then look who drives him in, Michael Harris, the guy who came fresh off the AL, hit and hit a grand slam for you. So I think that when you have guys like Merrifield and Michael Harris starting to, get a good feel for themselves and start to come around and all of that, from an individual standpoint, not a team, because like I said, that's dead, RIP, But when you have him getting comfortable in those moments, in those big key moments, and coming through for you, that's when that becomes a habit. And I feel like if Michael Harris can do that, he can be the X factor. But I feel like Whit Merrifield against his former team, he even said it himself. It felt good.
I was gonna say, had a little extra tinge to it. I feel you, man. I totally do. And he was my X factor too, by the way, for the same reasons that you mentioned. And in fact, that triple was probably the most important, because that ball kind of bounced away from Nick Castellanos, and that is exactly what you want somebody to do when they're at the bottom of the order. Just get on base, and then give Michael Harris II an opportunity to do what it is that he's going to do in that leadoff spot and pay dividends. And then kind of to expand on another X factor that you mentioned earlier, but I'll give it to the whole bullpen, right? Because like you said, Grant Holmes, 2 scoreless and hitless innings, and he moved down that Phillies down that Phillies order, that batting order, to pick up where Reynaldo Lopez left off. Then Joe Jimenez, pitched a scoreless eighth. And then Raisel Iglesias, even when he got into a little bit of a pickle, that's okay. He sat the Phillies down in the ninth and effectively ended that game. So I'll just give it to the bullpen overall.
Yeah, I'm with you. It was like Joe Jimenez has just been amazing this year. He's been lights out.
Yeah.
So I have nothing to add up there. And when you talk about Raisel Iglesias, he can get us a little scary a little bit. You can
Yeah.
kind of have us sitting on the edge of our seats in the ninth inning. But overall, he's been just as good as the Braves closers have had in the history of this team. So yeah, that is definitely something. That the guys who throw the balls, like they just deserve kudos just for everything they've done, not only last night but the entire season.
Entire season, exactly. Well, just like the entire season, the infirmity list grew this week, the infirmary list rather. But we'll talk about how Brian Snitker and Alex Anthopoulos have handled it yet again, just as always, in Going Deep. This episode of our Atlanta Baseball Party is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. You saw all of that in last night's game, right? You saw a passion in Whit Merrifield to get a little revenge back on his old team. You saw some drive in Reynaldo Lopez coming back from the IL, and you saw patience at the plate with Marcel Ozuna hitting that so important solo shot. Well, that's the same formula for winning championships that keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride or die every time, or your money back. So with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins, just like the Braves in their 3-1 win over the Phillies Tuesday. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions do apply, and eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. So Austin Riley underwent an MRI earlier this week that revealed a right hand fracture. Riley's expected to miss approximately 6 to 8 weeks. Now, the Braves immediately brought in Gio Urshela to fill in for the all-star third baseman. But what were your first thoughts, your initial thoughts when you got the news that Austin Riley went down and effectively will be shut down for the rest of the regular season?
Oh, it sucks. It just sucks. It's just because, given what Austin Riley, brings to just at the plate, and obviously defensively, he's one of the better third basemen in the Major League Baseball. And he has his moments sometimes from time to time, but overall, the guy is just rock solid, and you don't have to really worry about him at the plate or in the field. So for me, it was just I got sad. I ain't gonna lie to you. I got a little sad. When the news, I was like, man, golly, get Michael Harris back. And then next thing you know, he gets popped in the wrist, and Austin Riley gets popped in the wrist. And it's like, oh, okay, he'll be okay. And then next thing you know, it was inconclusive. I was like, oh, okay, all right, let's dig in there a little bit more. And get off the plane, coming back from the West Coast. The next thing you know, oh man, he's down for the 6 to 8 weeks. And I was just like, golly, man, it just never stops. And Brian Snitker even talked about just how it's been exhausting trying to figure out who's going to go, where this player going to play. Okay, who's going to fill in for this guy? Who's going to get this guy? Oh, we're getting this guy back. Oh, now we got to figure out a way to fill in for this guy. And thankfully, Urshela was a guy who had just gotten cut, and the Braves were able to, be able to try to bring him down and try to hopefully, give you something at the plate and not necessarily the best defensive third baseman, but, hopefully be able to just hold it down, hold that spot down, because he's definitely was the best option considering what you had in-house, because it was just, Nacho Alvarez, dealing with pneumonia and everything like that. It was just a lot going on that wasn't going to be conducive to the Braves to put whatever person out there, so it was good that they got that in. But I think overall, just like hearing the news and kind of processing it and just looking back over the season so far and just what the Braves have had to deal with and what we had to deal with as fans and watching his team was just like, man, what's next? Like it can't be nobody else,
Right. Hope not. I mean,
I hope not. Right.
Yeah. And it just reminded me that the Braves have literally only seen their starting lineup in full force one time, and that was opening day. Because once Spencer Strider went down, you never were able to see that full starting lineup all together at the same time.
And T, guess what? They didn't even have it for the whole game.
No,
Sean Murphy got hit. Sean Murphy went out.
Unfortunately, if you look down the list of the infirmary, he pretty much started the infirmary list. Well, both of them started the infirmary list, and then you can go all the way down. It's Austin Riley, it's AJ Minter recently going to the 60-day IL. It's Ozzy Albies, who you're probably not going to see again in the regular season. Ray Kerr, Huascar Inoa, Ronald Acuna Jr., Spencer Strider, Angel Perdomo. I mean, you could literally build a team, and you could build a strong team around just the people that the Braves have lost so far this season. And it's like, my God, my first thought was, what's poor Double A going to do now? I mean, like, what's he going to do now? But thank goodness, like you said, Urshela literally dropped in his lap. He was able Right. And he was able to get you a bases loaded walk to extend that Braves lead late. And that was just 2 days after he got let go by the Tigers. So I feel like at least one good thing is you always have an Alex Anthopoulos to try to plug in those holes when you need him to do so the most.
Yeah. And when you think about that, having a guy like Alex Anthopoulos and got to give Brian Snitker credit as well, because those are two guys who've had to deal with this from a personnel standpoint and also just a day-to-day
morale standpoint,
a morale and being able to go before your team. Even if you sit up here like, oh man, this sucks, but and a lot of times you can't go. You gotta put on at least for your team and be able to stand before them and be that leader. So like I feel like both of those guys deserve some credit in just looking at the situation, because there are a lot of teams that would have imploded, because I look at some other organizations that probably would have threw in a towel, to be honest with you, if they lost a guy like Ronald Acuna Jr. and Spencer Strider, in the first half of the season. So, and teams aren't built to be able to handle those type things. Thankfully, this team has been built to do that. And then as they've been dealing with as the season has gone along, is like those guys deserve a lot of credit to be 6 games out of the first place in the division and holding on to a wild card spot for dear life.
Yeah. And like you said, it's not that anybody is suggesting that they're going to win the division, but it's important to say that here we are after the infirmary list that we just read through, and it's the end of August, and we're still having a conversation about them just being 6 games out of first place in the division, and still, like you said, pretty much controlling their fate as it relates to wild card. And you talk about a Brian Snitker and what he's been able to do in spite of it all the ups and downs. And you kind of say, maybe he should get consideration depending on how things happen. But if the Braves get into a wild card series, and definitely if they miraculously win the NL East, he might be a guy that you consider for manager of the year.
Absolutely. If they mess around and figure out a way to have that bye and win a division, or not necessarily get that bye, because you have to have the you have a better record than the Phillies, obviously, so you win the division. So if you are winning that division and you are on, obviously you got Max, that means Max Fried his kind of figure the things out, and Reynaldo Lopez is continuing what he's doing, and Chris Sale is just being the dominant dude that he's doing, and that means Matt Olson has come around, and because we know he can carry a team. We saw that last year, just from a production standpoint. So if all those things are starting to work, and so that means whatever Brian Snitker is doing behind the scenes is working, and for him to go from where they were and being so far behind in the division to winning that bad boy, you at least got to have a conversation. Like if you and any baseball writer, for the Braves that covers the Braves, they got to look at that situation and say, man, these dudes dealt with a lot, and he was able to round up the troops and get another division title.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like he definitely deserves consideration.
Yeah, I think so too, because really the only other manager who's had to deal with the rash of injuries the way the Braves have is Dave Roberts. And the Dodgers are the team with the second most injuries in all of baseball, second only to the Braves. So, yeah, you look at their records, and of course, the Dodgers have won 75, Braves have won 67. So, Dave Roberts might be just a hair ahead in that conversation. But like I said, just a hair ahead, especially depending on how things play out for both teams as it relates to getting into the postseason, how they get into the postseason, and how they get through this last stretch of maybe their 30 to 35 games. But yeah, Brian Snitker, the things that he's able to do off the field, because how you have that clubhouse still believing that good things can happen, how you keep plugging in, and I'm going to say random players because they didn't start the season with this team, or even a Jorge Soler. It's been 2.5 years since we've seen him in a Braves uniform, and yet Brian Snitker is able to plug and play those players and those guys that Alex Anthopoulos brought in to be a part of this organization. I think they have fit in seamlessly, but not just because Alex Anthopoulos picked the right players, but because Brian Snitker knows how to fit them in seamlessly. So there are also some positives around things that have happened, all the shifts and the moves for the Braves. Angels in the outfield. We'll talk about it in the stretch. This episode of our Atlanta Baseball Party is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It is also the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the number. So all you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll, and you can get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. So a couple cool things about joining Prize Picks and taking advantage of what Prize Picks offers. Well, you can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into 1,000. So sign up today, and you can also get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus because it's guaranteed. And also, you may want to decide how you're going to do some things. Now, preseason football, it's a little bit tricky because we really don't know who's going to play in that final game. But if there are some position battles out there, you can pick one player from a football team to say, hey, is that person going to get a touchdown, or that player going to get a touchdown in this preseason game? Or you can look ahead to the 2024 season and start projecting who's going to have the most yards. Patrick Mahomes, CJ Stroud, touchdowns, you name it, you can do it on Prize Picks. So make sure that you download that Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100, because you know who else you might be able to bet on? Aaron Judge and what he's been able to do for the Yankees this season. So don't forget, it's downloading the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB, and Prize Picks helps you to run your game. So Jorge Soler pinch hit for the Braves Tuesday. Of course, he missed 4 games due to some hamstring tightness, but wow, how big was it to see him in that pinch hitting space, and of course being able to get Soler back into this Braves lineup?
Yeah, it talking about bringing back some pop, right? Because since he's been come on with the Braves, he's had 4 home runs, 11 RBIs. So and we saw how he went on a nice little streak with hitting a few home runs in back-to-back games or whatever. So those are some of the things that are positive and shows not only you and myself, but the Braves family. Like, hey, this is why Alex Anthopoulos was trying to get this dude before, back on this squad, but it just didn't work out for whatever reason. So when you think about it from that aspect of it, because coming into this game, they were like, oh yeah, he may or may not be available. We'll see and kind of see what's going on, and then in a big maybe Friday, and then in a big moment, we're like, hey, you ready? So to see him for them to have enough confidence in him to put him in that moment, that lets me know that, hey, he's ready to come back, and they just want to kind of see if they can get that bat in there,
Yes.
which has been pretty doggone solid since he's come over from the Giants. And just so that gives me confidence that, hey, like this outfield is starting to, maybe, hey, you can have a Michael Harris, Marty Soler and a Jared Kelnick out there, and just see how that works out.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say it.
Right. We'll just leave it kind of out there like that. And I say the same. Like all of the reports were saying that the Braves didn't expect Jorge Soler back until Friday. So I think that was the expectation of everyone going into the game. And like you said, suddenly he's pinch hitting. So that gave the Braves a nice little bump, especially because sometimes in those tight games, you just need a little something here and a little something there to seal the win. And he ended up getting a big walk late in that game to kind of help put it on ice for the Braves. And so, like you said, in addition to him being able to get those home runs, the 4 home runs, the 11 RBI, it's also your ability to just get on base and just kind of extend an inning, if you will, or give the Braves an opportunity by having yet another runner in scoring position, regardless of the fact that they may not have taken advantage of it or capitalized on it. It's what you have the ability to do in being able to see enough and having a good eye at the plate to be able to get that critical walk at a moment where you never know how things may have turned out or could have turned the corner for the Phillies. Now, speaking of the outfield, how about let's give flowers, because, we do that here. If you are good at what you do, we're going to give you flowers. If you're not so good, we're going to call you out for it. But today is about giving flowers to James Laureano because he had himself a nice ninth inning.
Absolutely. And to your point, T, about Jorge Soler getting on base, he's walked, 10 times since he's been a Brave? So, yeah, it's pretty doggone good. That on base percentage is looking really nice. So, yeah, for him to be able to do that, like, it lets you know that, that they have, Braves have some good things, or have the Angels in the outfield for sure. But James Laureano, like, I was calling for him to get out of there because there were just too many moments where you misjudging balls. I'm just like, man, what are you doing? It's I remember when Chris Sale was on the mound,
little league mishaps,
just little mishaps that just will extend an inning, and like once you extend an inning, that kind of gives the opposing team some definitely some type of momentum to be able to take advantage of it. And we know baseball, that happens on a consistent basis. When you make mistakes like that, those gimme plays, like, people are going to capitalize on them because these are professional hitters. Like, they see an opportunity, they're going to understand and come to the plate saying, you know what, I'm about to take advantage of this. And I just was at a point where I just wanted him to go. Like, let's get him out of here. So, but last night though, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. I'm talking about, I think he was even kind of showing off a little bit. I was like, man, you didn't have to start sliding that early to catch that ball, but it was cool to watch for him to kind of catch all 3 flies to end the inning, and that was just a really, really cool thing to see. And for him to be in this mode defensively, I really feel like, because he was doing some solid things at the plate, but it was just the defense that was kind of lacking. So for him to do like he did on Tuesday evening, that was just a really wonderful thing to see. And I just want to get this outfield, like those 3 names I mentioned. Give me some Kelnick, give me Michael Harris, give me Jorge Soler, and let's just roll. Let's just roll. Let's just see where the chips fall, baby.
And I think you make a great point, because one thing about the Braves that has always been consistent, even when they can't get it done at the plate, even when there might be some struggles in the bullpen, or really for the pitching staff overall, even for the starting rotation, their defense, infield, outfield, all the way around, has always been stellar. So it's not just, James Laureano is fumbling or he's misjudging where the ball is going to fall. No, it's more than that, because it feels like 10 times worse than it is, because you're not accustomed to seeing this with the Braves. The Braves have always been sound and very disciplined when it comes to defense. So I think to see that last night was very encouraging, because it looks like something that we've all become accustomed to seeing with this Braves team. And like you said, I hope that we continue to see it, whether it's him out there or whether it's Soler. We know we're going to see it with Michael Harris II, and also Jared Kelnick has given us gem after gem after gem this entire season defensively. But it will take those little those little moments in time where there's not a miscue, where you're actually executing, those are the little things that are going to get this Braves team over the top and keep them in the conversation as far as the wild card race, or even in the conversation to win the division down to the final week.
Yeah, and continue, coming up big in those moments. Like
Yeah.
you talk about Gina Ursula, drawing a walk, filling in for a guy that you can't just fill in for in Austin Riley. So it's just
Yeah.
those little things, those little ancillary players that have been brought in that weren't on this team to start the season. Those
Mhm.
guys don't have to come up consistently,
Yeah.
but the expectation is for them to come up in those moments. And when
Yeah.
you have an opportunity to take advantage in particular moments, that is the time that you do that. And I feel like if they continue to do those things, I
Mhm.
feel like the Braves will be just fine. And we can
Yeah.
continue to ride this roller coaster wherever it takes us.
Indeed. Thanks to our everydayers for making the Atlanta Baseball Party your first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by Locked On Braves for your second listen, and be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're free and available wherever you download your podcasts, and we'll see you on the Atlanta Sports Party tomorrow.